Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I know it's been a few days, I've been on vacation, but I am back, and I'm getting back to all of your questions today. Hopefully I can get 2 or 3 videos done today, another 2 or 3 tomorrow, which is Thursday, and then another 2 or 3 on Friday to get caught up for the week. And then next week, I've got some exciting interviews coming out. It's either next week or the first week of July that I got some really solid interviewees lined up for the show, and especially for the podcast, which I feature some of my longer videos on a podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, so go ahead and check it out. And for those of you that are new, welcome, thank you, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here, subscribe on the blog. You send questions to dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and I'll get back to you. I'll get back to everybody, even if you think it's a dumb question, even if I think it's a dumb question, I'll get back to you. And if it's a good question, I'll do a video. Like today, okay, today's from someone. Oh, and by the way, a big part of all this is that you remain anonymous unless you specifically ask me to mention your name. So today I got a question from someone. He says, Dan, all drug and device clinical trials are monitored, yet FDA still finds significant GCP violations which theoretically should be detected and corrected by study monitors. Any ideas why? So there's a couple of reasons for this. Okay, number one, this is true by the way. Number one, it's an accurate observation that you've had. And here's my theory on this, and there's probably 1,000 reasons why this happens, but one of them is sponsors rarely audit sites. So yes, they send out monitors on regular monitoring visits, and we're going to get into this topic in this video as well, but rarely do they actually conduct a full sponsor audit, much like an FDA would do an audit. So like a mock FDA audit conducted by the sponsor. I've participated in probably over 100 trials, I think it's safe to say by now, and I could remember like a dozen sponsor audits. Okay, so that's like, let's say 12%, right? So somewhere around 10 to 15% of the time you'll get a sponsor audit, which is a thorough audit, much like an FDA audit would be, although it's a lot less pressure because it's not a regulatory agency, it's just one of your customers, right? A sponsor auditing you. Another reason I believe is that CRAs are either overworked or lazy, or just are not given enough resources to do an adequate and thorough monitoring job. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go one at a time. So you've got lazy monitors. We've all seen it. If you've been in this business long enough, you've seen them coming in late, leaving really early, staying for like 2 hours. I've seen a monitor stay like 2 hours once and leave. And this is not good for my business either, because we don't get paid unless they review the data. So that's lazy monitors. Okay, that happens. That happens in any industry. So you can see how they can miss certain things in their monitoring process if they're actually not on site that often or they're lazy. Number 2, you have overworked monitors going to very busy sites, so very high enrolling sites, sites that are enrolling like 30 patients in a study, and so they don't even have time. All they're doing is playing catch up each time they go to the site, so they don't even have time to go look at the regulatory binders. I've seen this before because some of my sites are high enrolling. We have the monitors come in for these high enrolling studies that we're enrolling a lot of patients for, and they don't have time to look at the reg binder. All they can do is look at the data and the most recent visits since their last monitoring visit, and maybe if they have time, if they're lucky, they get a chance to look at the action items from their last visit to see if hopefully you completed it or not. So that's another reason, is very busy sites and overworked monitors. not lazy monitors this time, but overworked monitors, and the CROs theoretically in these cases should send someone to help the CRA go through everything thoroughly, or as thorough as possible. But oftentimes it doesn't happen because CROs are in business to make profit, right? Just like all of us. And so it's kind of a way of cutting corners. I mean, it's not really cutting corners, but it is. Another issue is that there's no real standard in the industry other than GCP, which is pretty vague. It's not that thorough, so it leaves a lot open to interpretation from sites and from CROs that may not always line up with what the FDA thinks should be done. And so that's reason number 3. There's probably hundreds of more reasons or other reasons. This would actually be a good written blog post at some point, but those are my 3 reasons. So hopefully this helps answer your question. It's a really good question. I've never received one like this before. I actually had to do some thinking about this one, which is unusual because I usually just see the question and I immediately get a response. This time was a little different. I had to ask a couple people from the site for their opinions. So good question. Keep them coming. Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and thanks for watching. Take care.
Yeah.